We're waiting for Kalman Yeager, but he'll join us. We gather here to show support for the officers of the NYPD who, when two disgraceful videos hit on social media, it showed a total disrespect for police officers and for law and for just proper decorum. It was ridiculous that this is being played around and shown on the social media. The problem here, though, is that this is going to spread because of that. The general disrespect for cops is out there. We've seen it, we've heard it, and now there's evidence of it. And actually having water buckets thrown on you as an officer and then have a bucket thrown at the officer's head. That is total disrespect. And I've lived through this in the 80s and early 90s when we saw this before Mayor Giuliani took over, and then we saw the broken windows take charge, and that actually stopped a lot of this. What we're seeing, though, is the district attorneys, the law is there, by the way, this is assault. We're seeing the district attorneys not enforcing it, and they need to enforce the law and especially protect our peace officers in NYPD and correction officers, by the way. So what we're seeing is a bad trend, returning to the bad old days of New York City. And we don't want that. Certainly the officers deserve better than that. And to hear actually the people taunt our police officers was even harder to take. And they had to take it. They looked the other way, but that shouldn't be. We have to stop this and stop this now. And I want to bring on Councilman Eric Ulrich, who's a neighbor of mine and a longtime friend, to also speak on this issue.
Thank you, Councilmember Holden. I'm very proud to stand with my colleagues here in City Council who support the men and women of the NYPD and the great job that they have done reducing crime to historic lows in New York City and giving the streets back to New Yorkers who felt like they had nowhere to turn to. Not that long ago, as Councilmember Holden just alluded to. New York's Finest does a terrific job. Is every single police officer perfect? No, we know that. There are over 30,000 police officers in the city, but when that video came out yesterday, I think that it showed tremendous restraint and self-respect and dignity on the part of the police officer. I think he made every cop and every police officer in this city proud yesterday. But at the same time, he was humiliated, and there was no reason for that, no good reason whatsoever. We cannot tolerate for any second any attack or assault or a level of disrespect towards not only a New York City police officer, but also firefighters, also sanitation workers. Our municipal workforce deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And in my opinion, police officers in particular, are already underpaid, underappreciated, and under attack in this city. So we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with the men and women of the NYPD to show our support, to call out this disgraceful attack on police officers yesterday. That attack was an attack on all the men and women of the NYPD. The people who are responsible for these crimes should be prosecuted. They need to be held accountable, and yes, they need to be charged with a felony. We have to have zero tolerance for violence against the men and women of the NYPD. And I'm calling on the mayor to also not just issue a press release or a statement. He and his dangerous rhetoric is to blame for some of these antics, literally antics on the subways and in the streets of New York City. People think it's okay to be disrespectful towards New York City police officers. It's not okay. And we need to hear stronger statements and demonstrated actions coming out of this administration, because we have not seen it thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Councilmember Paul Vallone.
Thank you, Councilmember Holder, and those who are here. You know, you never thought the day would come where we'd have a press conference when a bucket of water is dumped on one of our finest. It's hard enough in their life, which starts with putting on a bulletproof vest to start their day. That's how a first responder starts their day. They go to work, may not be coming home. They say goodbye to their wife and their family. Now they have to come home, see their children and their family and say, Dad, how was your day today? And they had to walk away with a bucket of water. And they were taunted and laughed at and scorned. And they walked away with as much dignity as they could back to their car doing their job. That's the city that we woke up to today. And if that's okay with everyone, then continue to eat your dinner and go to work tomorrow. But if it's not, take a look inside and say something and see something and make a difference and teach your children that is not how we act. There is a code that we live by and a respect that is passed on from generation to generation. And when I saw that, everything that was taught to me and that was taught to my children was shattered, because that's not how I was brought up. And if we're going to live in a society that's going to live and love one another, that starts with everyone around us, of every color, of every nationality, of every ethnic background, and whether they're an officer who's fighting to keep us safe. And over 8 million people in this city, if you think that is how we are going to live our lives, we have to look deep inside and say, that's not okay. And that's what today is about. And we have always stood with the men and women of the NYPD and our first responders and our correction officers. And we need to get better. But getting better is not what happened yesterday. That's taking many, many steps backwards. So as a father of children, as a husband of over 25 years, as an elected official, that was a disturbing video, and one that hurts today just speaking about it, and we should all be upset about that. Changes have to happen on so many levels for the decision to not have that happen before someone decides to say, I think this is funny and this is a great idea and I'm going to be a social media hit with this. There are deep problems when that's the answer. So I thank each of the council members here for today, and I thank you for showing up today. God bless each one of you.
You know, and today it's water thrown on them or buckets thrown at them, and tomorrow it'll be bricks and rocks, and we've seen that already in the 80s and early 90s. But I want to introduce a good man and a good leader, Councilman Mark Jonai.
Thank you, Council Member. I don't think there's anyone that has not been emotionally scarred that has seen that video. That is a complete breakdown of society and lawlessness. And to put things into perspective, anyone that's brave enough, bold enough to do this to our finest should have no qualm doing it to our mother, our sister, our brother, or our children. For law enforcement to be not only humiliated, but that was assault, direct assault, should be an eye-opener to all New Yorkers. New York is better than this. Those brave men and women deserve dignity and respect. They are out there as city employees. They are out there as those that protect us in our time of need. We should be standing by their side because they are under attack, and we need to protect them in all forms. I want to thank my council members who find the strength to speak up at a time when it may not be so favorable. But I know by speaking up, I'll be sleeping peacefully tonight knowing I did the right thing for every man and woman out there that is part of our law enforcement.
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you. Councilman Kalman Yeager, come on up.
Thank you. I actually, when I saw the videos yesterday, I thought they were a hoax, and I didn't say anything about them for a little while. I really thought that they were plotted, they were staged, some kind of weird thing I was seeing on Twitter, until I was talking to some other leaders in the city who told me that this was real, and I was shocked. Men and women who work in our law enforcement in this city, every single day they put on a uniform, they have a patch, the seal of the city of New York on it. They're not just our employees. They're there to stand between us and danger, and they don't hesitate to do it. And the notion that, we stand here today and there's a couple of elected officials here. There are a lot of elected officials in this city, not just us. And we've heard them speak out on police. We've heard what they've said about police. There are some in this city, both in elected office and not, who have said vile things about the men and women who protect our city. Vile things. And then yesterday, they're outraged. They're disgusted. Where did they think their words were going to lead us? What did they think would happen? They're so comfortable stoking fear, stoking anger, and not bringing the city together. And then when something happens, they get up and they go, oh, that's just a terrible thing. It's disgusting. And they know who they are. They need to say it out loud that we stand with our police. And it's not just that they're our police and they protect us and they're there for us. They're members of our workforce. They are employees of the city of New York. They're members in organized labor. They're men and women that labor unions should be standing up for and speaking out for. Why do they stand alone? Where is the voice of the city talking in one voice, one loud voice, and saying enough is enough? Cops are under attack in our city. Today with water, and my colleague said, you know, God forbid a brick. We've seen that. 1990s, Washington Heights, we saw something that, I mean, we've seen it just a couple of years ago. We saw a couple of cops just right after an enormous number of days and weeks of words, and cops get shot in the car, assassinated. Why? Because of the words of people. Now, here in this council, there are members of this body who are very famous for saying words matter. They say it all the time. They told it to me. They talk about words matter, but these words didn't matter. The place where we got today is the responsibility of every single official in this city who doesn't stand up and say enough is enough. And I'm grateful to see that you're here covering this, the members of the media. But we need to cover this more, because what we're talking about in this city and what we see all around the city are irresponsible people who are comfortable in ways that I have never seen in my life. I entered government in 1994. In 25 years, I have never seen this in my life in this city, the place we are today. It's dangerous, and it needs to stop.
Thank you. Thank you, Calvin. Every New Yorker should be embarrassed by those videos. Every New Yorker. And again, we're going to have riots in the street. If a police officer responds, we don't know what will happen now. What kind of job is that? It's a very tough job, the toughest job in the city of New York. So again, we need to stand up as elected officials. We'd like to see all the elected officials stand up and put a stop to this. And again, enforce the laws or write new ones that will make this even more serious. Anybody that throws a bucket or anything at a police officer should be arrested, period. Case closed. And we hope these perpetrators will be arrested. Questions? Yes.
Just to play devil's advocate here, if there was a video circulated showing police officers dumping water on civilians and then throwing a bucket at them, would you call for them to be charged with assault?
Of course, yes.
No
absolutely. Yeah.
Is that a double standard?
I didn't say it was. I said I was playing devil's advocate.
It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Today, Chief Monahan said that the people responsible for both incidents should be arrested and charged. Last night on New York One, Mayor Bill de Blasio said that one of the incidents, quote, was not confrontational. Wondering what you think about the daylight between.
Well, I like the
I
mayor.
wonder what would happen if the mayor
Yeah.
was hit with a bucket of water or a bucket, what he would think that would mean.
Yeah.
And I wonder what would happen to that individual.
They would be arrested. Right.
And then Councilman Yeager, who are you referring to? Who's the they?
They know who they are.
Would you name some
I'm
names?
not going to name them, but they know who they are. That's okay. That's fine. You don't have to write the names of the people, and I think you know who I'm referring to. You don't have to write the names of the people, but they know who they are, and if this message goes out in the city, the elected officials who have been speaking out loud, very loud, for a very long time, look, there's a particular elected official who is accusing a police officer of murder. I went to law school. I didn't see a murder in the city. Some of the stuff that's being said is designed by nature to stoke anger. It's not designed to bring people together. There was a campaign for city council just a few weeks ago in Brooklyn, and there were elected officials who were saying, vote for one candidate because that candidate is not supported by the police unions. Those are the bad guys. Vote for the other candidate. There's a place in this city where the language has become so dangerous, so intolerant to law enforcement. Law enforcement is there for us. They're not our enemy.
A question. What do you say to the folks who are watching and they would walk away from listening and say that you're trying to politicize this?
No, I believe there's a voice that needs to be heard. I just think there's a time for voices to be heard. with reason to say that was not acceptable. And if it was done to anyone, we'd be here today. Justice is justice for all, and that's what we're saying. And to see the law enforcement officers treated in that type of disgust and disrespect is unacceptable, and to be silent would be unacceptable, and that's why we're here today.
By the way, had this happened, had yesterday's incident occurred and the victims were members of the FDNY or the sanitation, we would still be here today. No city worker should be treated the way those cops were treated yesterday on the streets in broad daylight in New York City in the year 2019. We've come too far as a city to tolerate that kind of crap going on under our watch. And where is the mayor of the city of New York? He's running for president. He's pushing his divisive rhetoric. He is part and parcel to blame for many incidents where police feel that they are being discriminated against or treated poorly, because if the mayor can do it, the average citizen thinks it's all right to treat a police officer that way. I blame Bill de Blasio.
Could you expound on that? That's making some pretty heavy allegations.
For sure.
The mayor.
I think the fact that the mayor everybody knows that the mayor doesn't have the backs of the NYPD or of law enforcement. Ask any police officer, off the record, of course. They can't go on the record for fear that they'll lose their job. But the cops know who has their back and who doesn't. What is it? Well, he trivialized what happened yesterday, didn't he? I mean, someone just read me his comment. What was his comment yesterday?
That one incident was non-confrontational.
That the one incident was not confrontational.
I believe that was the one with the water guns.
Okay.
In fairness, he said he got that information from the PD. I don't know.
Right. I'm putting a valid opinion and a point out there that many people in this city feel that the mayor does not have the backs of the men and women of the NYPD, and that because of that, there's a direct correlation there that some people think it's okay what happened yesterday. By the way, look at social media. Look at the comments to some of the video clips of what happened yesterday. Vile, disgusting attacks, further attacks on the police officer. He deserved it. The names that they called police officers on Twitter, on Facebook, when people were posting that video. It's disgusting. It's shameful.
Councilman, what would you like to hear or see from the mayor?
I would like the mayor to come out and say we have zero tolerance for violence or attacks, not only on police officers, but on all city workers, and that the people who were responsible for yesterday's incident should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's what I would like to see the mayor of the city of New York stand up and say, but sadly he's not said that.
Any other questions? Okay.
Was the PVA supposed to be here today?
They chose not to be here. You'd have to talk to them why they're not here. By the way, what's the difference between the two incidents anyway? I don't know what the mayor is talking about with that, because they're both pouring water over police officers. And really, how many people here would love to have water thrown on you when you're fully clothed and you're walking on the streets of the city and trying to do your job? I mean, how many people would actually appreciate that? How many people would love to be taunted and called names and posted on social media with more vile comments? This is what our police officers and just city workers. I remember when firefighters, when they responded to a fire back in the 80s and 90s, would have gunfire shot at them, and bricks and rocks thrown at them because they were answering a call to put out a blaze. So we can't return to those days. We have to make an example out of this. And again, social media expands this. You'll see more copycat incidents like this, except it will escalate. So it has to be stopped now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're finito. We're moving.